So I am very excited because we are about to enter pretty much the most important part of the course. So please pay attention. We are going to start by talking about the use of oxygen, what is carbon dioxide, and what the urge to breathe, that feeling of breathlessness, means. Where does it come from? All right? So I like to be simple. So when it comes to oxygen, how are we going to refer to oxygen? Basically, oxygen equals cell fuel. Oxygen is the gas that keeps us alive, period. What about CO2? Once again, keeping it simple, CO2 is, we can call it a toxin, in simple terms. No, basically, we put gasoline in the car, oxygen, we drive, and the smoke that comes out, that is CO2 or carbon dioxide. What about the urge to breathe, the feeling of breathlessness? Okay, what does it mean when we feel it? Where does it come from? Are you running out of oxygen when you're holding your breath? Do you have too much CO2? What causes the urge to breathe when you're holding your breath? We could keep talking about it, but to keep things interesting, I'm going to ask you, when I count to 3, to take a deep inhalation through the nose or the mouth, it doesn't really matter, and you're going to hold the breath. For how long for? Until you feel a mild to moderate discomfort. Don't try a personal best. Don't hold your breath until you go blue or purple. You are simply going to hold your breath until you feel a mild to moderate discomfort. Excited? I hope so. Well, 3, 2, 1. Take a deep inhalation and pause the video. Start holding. So how did this first breath hold go? The first breath hold of the course, there's many more coming. I'm curious, how did it go? Chances are you were holding your breath, but you were lacking tricks, secrets, skills to deal with that breath hold effectively. You simply took a last breath, held your breath, and when you felt discomfort starting to appear, you breathe again. So you are aware, experienced breath holders, when going through a breath hold, have a lot of inner resources, particularly mental resources, points of focus, ways of thinking, ways of reacting to sensations that allow them to deal with a breath hold better, more effectively. So before your second breath hold, I am going to share with you some of the insights that freedivers or experienced breath holders use during their breath holding experiences. I like to refer to this as the breath hold journey. Every breath hold has a beginning and has an end. What matters to us is our skill at navigating through that breath hold effectively, because it's in this navigation of the breath hold journey that we are going to discover amazing and very valuable tools that we can apply in other aspects of life. In our case, surfing scenarios. So, getting started. Once your second breath hold begins, you're going to take an inhalation and you're going to start with the beginning of the breath hold, which experienced breath holders call the relaxation phase, which is actually the most pleasant part of the breath hold, where the body and mind are still unchallenged. Being the relaxation phase the most pleasant part of the breath hold, it makes sense to make it last longer. How do you make a relaxation phase last longer? Well, first of all, you need to recognize that relaxation is a skill. Many people understand the concept of relaxation, but few have the skill to enter a deep relaxation state and stay there for as long as they want, or stay there for a long period of time. So, what allows experienced breath holders to relax effectively and stay relaxed for a period of time is they play with different cues, different techniques that allow them to enter to this state. What are some of these techniques? Some freedivers, for example, play songs in their heads, a song that relaxes them. Some decide to focus in the surrounding sounds, what they can listen around them. Some focus on sensations. Could be sensations within the body, like heartbeats. Could be sensations outside the body, like wind blowing on the skin, or the temperature of the water, you name it. Some even could be putting in practice meditation techniques they are very familiar with, visualizations, happy memories. No, there's many options. The actual rule is that the relaxation technique that you use is very personal, because what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for your friend. All right? So before the next breath hold, before the second breath hold, I want you to choose a relaxation technique, a relaxation trick. So you're going to take an inhalation, and as soon as your breath hold begins, you're going to put in practice your relaxation technique. This relaxation technique will help you stay relaxed, hopefully, and lengthen this relaxation phase. Eventually, inevitably, sensations of discomfort will start to appear. Initially mild, eventually moderate, and eventually very intense. Once they get here, we can say that the urge to breathe, the sensation of I want to breathe now, is very intense. And most humans would interpret this moment as their breaking point. If they cannot breathe in that moment, they're going to get very tense, very anxious, quite panicky. However, you should be aware that experienced breath holders have developed the skill, the ability to navigate through these sensations of discomfort in complete control of themselves, like we saw on the videos a few minutes ago. All right? So during your second breath hold, ideally, I want you to choose a relaxation technique which you're going to use to navigate through the relaxation phase. Eventually, you're going to feel discomfort. I am telling you that it is possible to navigate through discomfort, staying in control of yourself, and eventually enter the third phase of the breath hold, which is when the breathing muscles start contracting. Initially, contractions of the breathing muscles are mild and spaced, and eventually they get more frequent and more intense. And eventually the person starts to breathe again. So in a way, I am telling you, ignore your body's alarms telling you to breathe now. You can't keep holding much longer. How much longer, you must be wondering. And please take this as a point of reference, not a rule written on stone. Well, from the moment you feel intense extreme discomfort, or the first contractions, roughly around this area, you have at least double the time left in the tank if you started from a fresh start and you are not moving through the breath hold. All right, so for example, if you've been holding your breath for a minute and a half and you have the first contraction or the first sensation of intense need to breathe, you have another minute and a half left in the tank. Once again, this is not a rule written on stone. Your actual limit is something you explore progressively over time, but just take it as a reference that from the point of intense discomfort, you have more juice left in the tank. All right? Let's go back to the start. Soon, you're going to start your second breath hold. So, your homeworks. You're going to choose a relaxation technique that is going to help you enter a deep relaxation state and stay there. Now, being honest with you, this relaxation technique might start to lose its effectiveness when discomfort starts to appear. So, what do a lot of freedivers and endurance athletes swear by? A lot of freedivers and endurance athletes, like triathletes for example, swear by the use of short and repetitive phrases. We can also refer to them as mantras. I like to call them mental firewalls. These are basically short phrases which last 2 to 3 seconds long, which you start repeating over and over in your mind, over and over. Short, simple phrase, easy to remember. Okay? Why is this phrase effective? Because whilst you are repeating this phrase in your head, you are protecting your head from potential thoughts that could trigger fear, panic, anxiety, anticipation in you. And this constant repeating of the phrase protects your mind from any thought that could potentially break you, that could potentially open the gates of panic. All right? So, going back to the start, soon you're going to start your second breath hold. in which you're going to practice a relaxation technique that you are going to choose, something personal. You're going to be using this relaxation technique, paying attention to sensations. And once these sensations starts to appear, but before they get too uncomfortable, whilst they are still moderate, you're going to switch from your relaxation technique into your short and repetitive phrase. A short and repetitive phrase could be something as I am safe, I am strong, I am safe, I am strong, or simply counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. In some courses, people have used things like I am the boss, I am the boss, or I am the lizard king, I am the lizard king, or keep on going, keep on going. The rules are, they need to be short, they need to be easy to remember, and you want to repeat them at a comfortable pace, not rushing through it. It is not like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Because that speed of frequency, that frequency is going to start actually accelerating you. All right? So, going back to the start, you're going to take an inhalation, start holding your breath, put in practice a relaxation technique. Before discomfort gets too intense, jump onto your short and repetitive phrase, which will allow you to enter the more intense, more challenging part of the breath hold in a stronger mindset. Okay? Personally, I don't care how long you are going to hold your breath for the second time. For me, much more important is how effective your relaxation technique was and how effective your phrase worked for you. Okay? So, without more to say, 3, 2, 1, take a deep breath in and start holding your breath a second time. Pause the video as you start. So, how did this second breath hold go? Chances are it was much more interesting than breath hold number 1. Reason behind, there were more tools, more resources to play with. Basically, your whole breath hold experience had more depth to it. Now, maybe some of you are wondering, Augusto, everything sounds very interesting, but as a surfer, when going through a challenging scenario or actually dealing with a wipeout, breath holding during a wipeout, there is rarely a relaxation phase. There is no time to actually feel relaxed or start in a very comfortable place. And neither are wipeouts so long, usually, that I experience contractions. So why are you taking me through such a long breath holding process? Well, personally, I am a surfer too, and I am aware that most of the breath holds a surfer experiences during a surf session when dealing with wipeouts happens around this area. No, it goes from mild, moderate to intense discomfort depending on the nature of the wipeout you experienced. Okay, I am aware of this. However, it'll be very hard for me to share with you, to teach you how to manage yourself in these scenarios by constantly throwing you straight into discomfort. Okay, it's much more beneficial, a much better way of learning to experience the breath holding experience, the breath hold journey in slow motion, starting in a very comfortable place and actually experiencing deep relaxation, so you become aware of what deep relaxation feels like, slowly progressing into discomfort, going from mild, moderate, eventually intense, and then experiencing contractions of the breathing muscles, which is the most, let's say, intense part of a breath hold, later on. And whilst doing all this, having resources, tricks to start playing with, to start interacting with the different stages of the breath hold. Now, the relaxation technique that you could have chosen for the second breath hold and the phrase you chose for the second breath hold might not work when you do the pool exercises later. And whatever you use to stay focused and calm in the pool might not work when you go surf. And you might wonder, hey, Augusto, what you are teaching me, it's applicable in class, but it's not applicable in real life scenarios. And my answer to that would be, you are correct. Of course, if we stick to the same relaxation technique, to the same phrase, and we try to take it and apply it as is in other real-life scenarios, it not necessarily is it going to work. The reason behind is that every scenario, every experience someone goes through has its own very particular anchors to stay calm and focused when dealing with discomfort. So, to share with you some of the tricks that I use. For example, if I am training static breath holds, no breath holds with no movement, which I could practice lying on a yoga mat or floating in a swimming pool, I would use to relax. I do body scanning. I pay attention to bodily sensations, scan my body from head to toes, toes to head, very, very slowly. For moments I jump in to feel my heartbeats. And eventually, once discomfort starts to appear and the contractions start, I shift from body awareness into counting contractions in short cycles, 3 to 5 contractions per cycle. So that is what I do during static breath holds. When I go spear fishing, for example, if I am waiting for fish in deep blue water, or actually deep green murky water, can be a bit spooky, but I actually feel it's a good place to wait for pelagics, and I want to stay there for a while, I'll start playing a very slow song in my head, super slow song in my head. And when the time comes to start going back to surface, let's say maybe the fish didn't appear or discomfort starts to onset and I think it's time to start heading back up, rather than looking up and seeing how far I have left and starting to worry about it, I enter a nice streamlined posture and start kicking back to surface, counting my kicks in cycles of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all my focus is in the next 4 kicks. And eventually I break surface. If I am surfing, for example, let's say I paddle for a wave, don't catch it, get caught, get thrown over the falls, and the wipeout starts in a pretty gnarly place, of course, I am not bulletproof. If I'm not careful, I could easily start to get a little anxious or panicky. So in order to avoid this, the first thing I do, as quickly as I can, I put attention on my face. I do like what I call a face check. And the face, same as the hands and the feet, has a lot of nerve endings. So when doing this first face check, I make sure my face is free of tension. So immediately I release any tension my face could have. I basically calm my face. And soon after my face is calm, the rest of my body believes or feels that we can actually enter a calm state in that scenario. So first I do a face check. This takes milliseconds. Right after the face check, I need a strong point of focus. I need to put attention in something hard, something easy to feel, which in my case, I choose to pay attention to water turbulence. During a wipeout, water turbulence is very easy to feel. So rather than starting making stories in my head or anticipating, wondering how much longer this wipeout is going to go for, is there going to be a second wave behind, am I going to hit the reef, my focus is in water turbulence. What is the water doing? Oh, it's so powerful, it's too powerful, no point in finding it just yet. If I feel water turbulence is starting to take me down and probably there's going to be shallow reef, I might start moving my hands or protecting my face. But all my attention is on the water turbulence, on the level of energy. And as soon as I feel energy starting to dissipate, okay, energy is getting weaker, okay, time to start making an effort to return back to surface. So I described 3 different scenarios, static breath holds, spear fishing scenarios, wipeouts, where I am still applying these same principles, but let's say in different styles. All right, so that is very important. That is the reason behind me teaching you the breath hold journey in slow motion, because it gives you more time, more space to start playing with all these tricks And eventually, once you start becoming more aware of what works and what doesn't, slowly, progressively, you start taking the, let's say, indoor practice, the classroom practice, and transferring it into real life scenarios. Okay? I cannot tell you what will work for you. This is something you'll need to discover by yourself over a period of time. Enjoy the process. Some points of clarification. Okay? Now, why the effectiveness of the short and repetitive phrase? Well, when the body is feeling very challenged, when the body and mind are feeling very challenged, they find it very hard to keep on going if they start to feel, to believe that the challenge has no end, that is going to the infinite, for example. Whilst if the phrase is short and repetitive, subconsciously, it feels very nice to know, to feel, to taste victory every time we complete a phrase. So let's say you are running an ultramarathon and suddenly you reach a high viewpoint and you see how many kilometers are left to the finish line. That thought could be enough to break you. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much left. Forget it, pain is unbearable. Whilst if rather than focusing on how far you have left, you suddenly look at the next tree and you go, you know what, I can make it to that tree. And you get to that tree and you know what, I can make it to that house. Eventually, the big challenge is broken down into smaller stages. And the mind will feel it more realistic to reach a shorter challenge.